We'd been planning that camping trip for months. My brother Luke had just come back from deployment, and I thought a weekend in the woods might help him breathe again. He hadn't been the same since he got home. Quiet, hollow-eyed, jumping at small sounds. I figured nature might settle him. It was just me, Luke, and our friend Sarah. We drove out to an old state park that hardly anyone visited anymore. The kind of place with no cell service and only faded wooden signs to guide you. When we pulled in, the ranger's station was empty, windows boarded up. A single trail stretched into the forest. "Looks dead," Sarah said, frowning. Luke just shrugged, tossing his pack over his shoulder. "That's what we want, right? Quiet." The first day was fine. The trees were tall and thick, their branches knitting together overhead, so the sunlight came down in stripes. We set up our tents beside a narrow creek and built a small fire. For a while, it almost felt normal again. Luke even smiled when Sarah told one of her dumb jokes about bears. I let myself believe maybe this trip was working, but that night, everything changed. I woke up sometime after midnight to the sound of footsteps outside my tent. Soft, slow, deliberate. At first, I thought it was Luke going to relieve himself, but the steps circled my tent. I held my breath, heart hammering. Whoever it was, they stopped right by my head, just inches from the thin nylon wall. I whispered, "Luke." No answer. The footsteps moved away, crunching over leaves, then faded into the dark. In the morning, I asked if either of them had been up walking. Luke swore he hadn't. Sarah looked pale. "I thought I heard someone too," she said. "But I figured it was you." We tried to shake it off. Maybe another camper, though we hadn't seen anyone for miles. But that day, as we hiked deeper into the trails, Luke kept stopping, turning his head like he heard something. When I asked, he muttered, "We're being followed." His face was tight, jaw clenched, like he was back overseas. By the time we got back to camp, the sun was bleeding out between the trees. And that's when we saw it. Our tents had been slashed, not torn by animals, cut clean, straight down the seams. Inside, our sleeping bags were gone. All of them. Just gone. Sarah panicked, shouting, "Who the hell is out here?" Her voice echoed through the woods, but nothing answered. Luke's hands shook as he held his knife. He looked at me, and I saw real fear in his eyes. The kind of fear that comes from knowing something is wrong beyond fixing. We built the fire high that night, all three of us sitting close. Every crack of a branch made us flinch. Hours passed, in silence. Then, just past midnight, we heard it, sobbing. It was faint at first, drifting through the trees. A child's sob, high-pitched, broken. Sarah's face went pale. That's a kid." Luke's hand clamped on her arm. "No, it's not." The crying grew louder, circling us, moving through the dark. It came from everywhere at once. I gripped my flashlight, my chest burning. Then from the shadows beyond the fire, we saw shapes. Not one, not two, a dozen. Thin, tall figures standing just beyond the light's reach. They didn't move. They just stood there, watching. The crying stopped. We couldn't see faces, just outlines. But I swear their heads were wrong. Longer, tilted, like they were listening. Sarah whimpered. Luke stood, knife out, his whole body shaking. "Stay in. The light," he whispered. The figures didn't step closer, but the longer we stared, the more wrong they looked. Their arms hung too low. Their fingers, impossibly long, swayed like grass. And then, all at once, every single one of them turned and melted back into the trees. Gone. We didn't sleep. We didn't even speak. We waited until the first light broke through the branches, then packed what little we had left and bolted. The hike back felt endless. Every few minutes I looked over my shoulder, certain they'd be there again, just beyond sight. Luke kept muttering under his breath, words I couldn't catch. Sarah was crying silently. When we finally reached the trailhead, my stomach dropped. Our car was gone, just tire tracks in the dirt where it had been. I don't remember much after that, just running. The three of us stumbling down the road until a truck came along hours later and picked us up. The driver said he'd never seen anyone camping out there in years, that the park had been closed after people went missing. We never told him about the crying, or the figures in the trees, or the footprints we later found circling our dead fire. We just sat in silence, broken and shivering, until he dropped us at the nearest town. Luke won't talk about it. Sarah refuses to ever camp again. And me, I can't close my eyes in the woods without hearing that sound. A child's sob, soft and lonely, drifting closer through the dark. We picked the wrong lake. That's what I tell myself now. There were other campgrounds, other spots, but Luke had found this one on some forgotten forum online. Hidden gem, the post said. Secluded, peaceful, perfect for stargazing. So there we were, me, Luke, and my girlfriend Erin, driving down a cracked dirt road that felt like it hadn't seen a car in years. The trees crowded close on either side, branches scraping the roof like claws. When the road finally opened, we saw it, Blackwater Lake. The water lay still, no ripples, no birds skimming its surface. The air smelled thick, like iron and rot. I remember Erin whispering, "This place feels wrong." She wanted to turn back, but Luke just grinned. That's the point. No crowds, no noise. We set up camp near the shore, 2 tents and a fire pit. The lake reflected the sky like a black mirror, perfectly still, even when the wind moved through the trees. Something about it made me uneasy, like if I stared too long, it would stare back. That first night was quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no owls, no splash of fish, just the crackle of our fire and the heavy silence pressing in around us. Luke told stories to fill the space, but even his voice sounded swallowed by the dark. Erin sat close to me, her hand cold in mine. I woke around 3 in the morning to the sound of water. Not waves, not splashing, dripping, like something climbing out of the lake. I held my breath and listened. Soft footsteps padded over wet earth, then silence. In the morning, I found prints near the shoreline. Not animal prints, not boots, bare feet, small, like a child's. They led from the water straight toward our tents and stopped only a few feet from mine. I showed Luke, but he just laughed it off. "Kids messing around," he said. But we hadn't seen a single soul since we arrived. Erin wouldn't even look at the prints. That night, we built the fire bigger, trying to chase away the dark. The lake reflected the flames, a warped orange glow across its surface. We stayed up late, nervous to sleep. Around midnight, Erin stiffened. "Do you hear that?" At first, I didn't. Then I caught it. A soft humming, low and steady, drifting across the lake. A tune, like someone humming to themselves in the dark. It grew louder, closer, until it seemed to come from right behind us. We spun, flashlights in hand, but there was nothing. The trees stood silent, black against the night. The humming stopped. Luke forced a laugh, but it was thin. Probably the wind through the trees. He said it too fast, like he didn't believe it either. That was when the smell hit us. Wet, earth, mold, something foul, like meat left too long in the heat. It rolled over the campsite in a wave, choking and heavy. Erin gagged, covering her mouth. I felt my stomach twist, and then we saw her. A figure at the edge of the trees. Pale, thin, hair long and dripping wet. She stood barefoot in the dirt, water pooling around her feet. Her head tilted, eyes wide, mouth stretched in a smile that didn't belong on a living face. Erin screamed. Luke grabbed a stick from the fire, holding it like a torch. "Stay back," he shouted, voice shaking. The woman didn't move. She just stood there, smiling, humming that same low tune. Then she stepped back and vanished into the trees. None of us slept. We sat by the fire until dawn, jumpy at every crack of a branch. When the sun rose, we packed. Luke tried to play it cool, but his hands shook as he folded his tent. Erin kept whispering, I told you. We were almost ready to leave when I noticed something. Our packs, zippers undone, not ripped, not torn, opened. Inside, everything was wet, soaked through, dripping as if they'd been dragged into the lake and pulled back out. We didn't speak. We just threw what we could into the car and left the rest behind. The road back felt longer. The trees seemed closer. Erin kept looking out the back window, whispering, "She's following us." I told her not to say that, but my eyes kept darting to the mirror anyway. When we finally hit pavement, I let out a shaky laugh of relief, but it didn't last. Because when I glanced at the side mirror one last time, I saw her, standing in the middle of the dirt road, bare feet, wet hair, still smiling. I haven't been camping since. Erin refuses to even talk about that trip. And Luke, he jokes about it sometimes, but his eyes go flat when he does, like he's remembering something he won't share. But late at night, when the world is quiet, I hear it again. That low, steady humming. Soft at first, then closer, always closer. And I know she never really stayed at the lake. She came with us. We thought we were alone up there. It was me, my cousin Daniel, and my friend Jess. We'd driven deep into the Appalachians, chasing some forgotten trail we'd found on an old map. The further we drove, the less the road looked like a road, just dirt cutting through thick woods. By the time we parked, my phone had lost signal hours back. Daniel grinned, unloading the gear. Perfect, right? No people, no noise. We set camp in a clearing, trees pressing around us like walls. The forest felt heavy, quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. No birdsong, no insects, just the creak of branches swaying overhead. That night around the fire, Jess asked if we noticed how the woods listened. I laughed it off, but Daniel nodded slow. Feels like someone's out there watching. We stayed up late, telling stories to fill the silence. Around midnight we heard it, a whistle, just 3 notes, soft, low, carried through the trees. We froze, Daniel whispered, probably the wind. But the sound came again, 3 notes, identical. Jess shook her head. Wind doesn't whistle the same tune twice. We stared into the dark, but the firelight only reached so far. Beyond it, the woods looked endless. Finally, Daniel tossed another log into the flames and muttered, "Whoever it is, they can stay out there." We didn't sleep well. At some point I woke up. My tent glowed faint from the dying fire outside. For a moment, I thought I heard someone walking between the tents. Soft, deliberate crunches on dry leaves. I held my breath. The steps stopped right beside me. Then came the whistle, 3 notes, inches from my tent wall. I lay frozen until dawn. When we got up, Jess was pale. "Did you hear it too?" she asked. Daniel didn't answer, just kicked dirt over the fire pit, jaw tight. We argued about leaving, but Daniel insisted we'd be fine. "We came for quiet. We got it. Don't spook yourselves." Jess wanted to go. I wanted to go, but Daniel could be stubborn as hell, and somehow he convinced us to stay one more night. That day, the forest pressed closer. Every tree felt like it leaned toward us. Every shadow looked too long. At one point, I swear I saw movement between the trunks. A figure, tall, still, watching. When I blinked, it was gone. By evening, the woods had gone silent again. Not just quiet, silent, even. The wind seemed to hold its breath. We built the fire higher, sitting tight around it. Nobody joked. Nobody talked. Then, from the trees, the whistle came again. 3 notes. This time, more joined. Another whistle from the left. Then, one behind us. Then another. The same 3 notes, echoing from every direction, overlapping until the sound closed in. Jess grabbed my arm, shaking. Daniel stood, knife in hand, turning in circles. "Stay back!" he shouted, though he couldn't see a thing. Shapes emerged just beyond the firelight, dozens of them. Tall figures between the trees, pale faces barely visible in the dark. All of them still, all of them watching, and all of them whistling the same tune. My blood went cold. They didn't move closer, just circled us, sound weaving, tighter and tighter. Jess was crying. I couldn't breathe. Daniel stood frozen, knife trembling in his grip. Then one by one, the whistles stopped. The forest fell silent again. The figures melted back into the dark. We didn't sleep. As soon as the sky lightened, we packed and left, stumbling down the trail, half running with our gear barely strapped. None of us spoke a word until we reached the car. When we got in, Jess gasped. On the back window, drawn through the layer of dirt, were 3 long lines, 3 notes. We drove until we hit town, none of us daring to stop. It's been years since that trip. Jess moved across the country. Daniel won't talk about it, won't even hear the word camping. As for me, I still hear it sometimes. At night, when the world is quiet, when I lie awake in my apartment, the sound comes drifting soft through the walls. 3 notes, low, familiar, patient, and I know they're still out there, watching, waiting. We weren't supposed to camp there. The trail map showed 3 official sites along the ridge, but Daniel, being Daniel, wanted to push further. "Better views," he said, grinning, already marching ahead. By the time we reached the end of the marked trail, the sun was sinking. My girlfriend Maya shot me a look, but I followed. I always did. Another hour of hiking brought us to a clearing that wasn't on any map. The trees opened into a flat stretch of earth littered with old stones, worn smooth and arranged in circles. Some were knee-high, some only stumps jutting through the dirt. They didn't look natural. Maya stopped dead. "This feels wrong," she whispered. Daniel laughed. "It's perfect. Look at the view." Beyond the clearing, the mountains stretched black against a dying orange sky. The wind cut cold through the trees, carrying no birdsong, no rustle, just emptiness. I wanted to turn back, but it was late, and none of us wanted to hike in the dark. So we set up our tents inside one of the stone circles. That night, as the fire cracked low, Maya asked, "What do you think these stones are?" Daniel shrugged. "Old markers, maybe. Graves." He said it like a joke, but no one laughed. We went to bed early. I woke sometime after midnight to the sound of voices, not loud, whispers weaving through the tents. At first I thought it was Daniel and Maya, but when I listened, I realized the whispers weren't coming from the tents. They came from the stones. Dozens of voices murmuring together, low and steady, speaking in words I couldn't understand. My heart thudded. I wanted to wake the others, but fear pinned me down. I squeezed my eyes shut until the whispers faded. In the morning, I told them. Daniel just smirked. "Dreams. You were half asleep." But Maya looked pale. "I heard something too," she said. "We should have left then." But Daniel refused. "One more night. Relax. It's just an old campsite." The day dragged heavy. The air felt thick, wrong. At times I thought I saw movement in the tree line, like figures watching. But when I blinked, the shadows were empty. That evening, as the fire burned, Maya went quiet. I asked if she was okay. She shook her head slowly. "They don't want us." "Here," she whispered. Daniel rolled his eyes. "Who's they?" "The squirrels." But then the wind died, and the clearing went still. The fire flickered weakly, though no breeze touched it. The stones around us seemed taller in the dim light, looming, and then the voices returned, not whispers now, louder, all around us, coming from the stones, harsh, broken syllables that clawed into my ears. The ground felt like it hummed beneath me. Maya grabbed my hand, trembling. Daniel stood pale now, his bravado cracked. "Okay," he muttered. "Okay, we're leaving." But the voices rose higher, and through the firelight, I saw them, figures, not solid, shadows, tall and thin, standing between the stones, their heads bowed, faces hidden, dozens of them circling us. The fire sputtered low, choking in the still air. I felt cold seep into my bones, breath fogging, though the night wasn't that cold. Daniel shouted, "Stay back!" His voice cracked, desperate. The shadows didn't move closer, but their heads lifted in unison. And I saw their faces, empty hollows, mouths gaping wide, black as the night sky. The voices turned into a wail, not anger, mourning. Maya screamed, clutching me. I dragged her toward the tent, but the earth shook, stones trembling. My flashlight flickered and died. Daniel ran for the tree line, disappearing into the dark. The wailing followed. Maya and I collapsed into the tent, clinging to each other as the air grew heavy, pressing down on us. I could hear them outside, the shuffle of steps, the low drone of grief, the stones grinding. At some point, I blacked out. When I woke, the clearing was silent. Grey dawn spilled weak light through the trees. The fire was ash. Maya lay beside me, pale, but breathing. Daniel never came back. We searched for him for hours, calling until our voices broke. No sign, not a footprint, not a scrap of gear, just the stones, standing silent, their surfaces damp as if they'd been touched by countless hands. We finally stumbled back to the trailhead. A ranger listened to our story with flat eyes and said, "That area's closed. Has been for decades. You're lucky you made it out." He didn't explain why. Maya won't talk about that night. Sometimes she wakes sobbing, saying she hears the voices again. As for me, I can't walk past a cemetery without my skin crawling, because I know what I heard in that clearing. Not anger, not rage. They were grieving, and we were trespassing on their sorrow. And I think wherever Daniel is, he's still grieving with them.